Now, you don't get to often hear about some of the things that are going on in mid-school and high school ministry if you don't have a student in any of those grades, but that's kind of what we want to share with you tonight. We want to show you all the things, that just at least a snippet of the things that our Lord is doing amongst the youth in Albuquerque. So who's part of the Velocity ministry in here tonight? Well, just a little info. Velocity sees over 400 students every single week, if you can actually believe that. And just this year alone, in 2011, we've seen over 100 students make professions of faith, which is just incredible. Give it up for that. We have about 50 students who take place in discipleship groups and who are being discipled at every single Tuesday. And in 2011, Velocity's seen the birth of several new ministries, a couple of them being U Ministry, where we actually go into students' schools and we support them at their extracurricular activities, which is a wonderful thing. And we also saw something called Velocity Refresh, and we just recently did that for the first time. We visited 3 public schools, and we gave away about 40 Bibles. We gave a lot of information away and talked to a lot of people about the gospel of Jesus Christ. So that's been really wonderful. And some of the things that are going on in Vertical Student Ministries is Vertical sees over 200 students every single Saturday night at their services. It's incredible to see that. They also have seen over 200 professions of faith at their Streetlight Ministry, which goes out every single Friday. They go out every single Friday to malls and places like that and preach the gospel. And Vertical also went to Costa Rica this year, took several students down to Costa Rica to support some missionaries there, to spread the gospel, and it was very, very fruitful. They also have had over 30 students participate in what they call Instruct, which is their apologetic evangelism Bible study class that's held right here on campus, taught by Calvary pastors. And they have over 70 people in discipleship groups every week as well. So you give a hand for all God's doing and just that little bit of ministry there. Now, to my right here, your left, I have 4 good-looking people here. I promise you they are truly students or part of Velocity or Vertical. We didn't just hire them off the streets to come in here and give them answers. But we want to go a little bit more in depth to some of the things that I just mentioned that we are doing in student ministries. So I'm going to start off with Johnny here. Part of Vertical Velocity is we're probably 2 of the ministries that are closest working together. We have a lot of overlapping things, overlapping events. And so one of the things we do is worship, and our worship leaders are usually youth-led, and they go between Vertical and Velocity, so we see a very mix of leaders. Johnny, for maybe some of the parents here who don't get to see what worship is like in Vertical and Velocity, what's kind of the attitude and the atmosphere of worship amongst the high school and mid-schoolers?
Basically, what we try to do is same as in here. We get up and we pray and we worship God in song, such as the songs you hear up here. We believe that to come before God and worship is so crucial. It's what we were made to do. We were made to worship. So we just we play all the songs you hear in here, and we just have a lot of fun with that.
That's awesome. And Madison, you at one point were not only a Vertical student, but you're also a Velocity leader. So how has it been? Everybody likes Madison. How has it been being poured into in Vertical and also being able to pour into the generation that's younger than you, or I should say you're almost your peers, just a couple years younger than you in Velocity?
It's actually a blessing, really, because one of the messages that I've heard was that you can't feed people unless you're being fed yourself. And being a student and being a leader at the same time really gives me a good grasp on what to say to the students, and always keeps whatever word I'm looking for. It always keeps the word fresh in my mind.
Great, that's awesome. That's super cool. And as you saw in that video, we do several events together. One of them every February being the Peak, our winter retreat. We take a bunch of students up to Colorado and we hit the slopes, and it's a really great time. Ben, one of our Velocity students here, has been on the Peak several times. Ben, tell us a little bit about some of your favorite things about the Peak.
Well, it's really great. I love the worship. It's just whenever you take communion, and it's really intimate with God, and it's a lot of fun. And, sledding and throwing snowballs at each other and going snowboarding on a really great ski resort. It's just a lot of fun.
That's awesome. And Nick, you've been on the Peak a couple times too. And so, people might think that, why should I send my student? Are they just going to go up there and just throw snowballs or just make snow angels and stuff like that? What's the correlation between snow and the spiritual side of things?
Well, for me, the biggest thing has been that just getting out of town and to just get into God's creation and, just enjoy it more intimately. It kind of opens up a door to be able to just appreciate and worship Him on just a higher level. And so that was something that was very much impressed upon me while I was there. That's great.
That's great. And besides the Peak, we also do another one of our huge events that Vertical and Velocity do together is called the Weekend. The Weekend is our biggest event. We have several hundred students who are in town for an in-town retreat where they stay at host homes. And Ben, I know you've been to this before, and so has Nick. But Nick, let me ask you a question. What are some of the craziest things that we've done at the Weekend as of lately?
Wow, that's quite a question. I think for me, let me see. I've eaten Peeps covered in queso dip before with wasabi.
Kind of sounds okay.
Yes. I have been on a giant slip and slide. Let me think. Gosh, I remember the first year I went, they had an activity where you had to stick your hand inside this box, and it was filled to the top with, they wouldn't tell us what kind of bugs there were in it, and I have this fear of spiders, could not get over it, but gosh, I've been pushed out of my comfort zone many times being at the Weekend. So.
I think a lot of people have. And Johnny, you actually recently got to be a leader for the Weekend, and you had about 12 mid-school guys that you spent 48 hours or so with every single minute. And so what was it like to see what God can do in a short period of time with those students?
Well, when they all first kind of got together, the groups were random. So it wasn't like all of them were like friends in our group. So it was really cool to see over the Weekend how these relationships would bond. These kids who, they'd sit by themselves and kind of, they'd look around, see if they knew anybody in their group. And then by the end, they're all like laughing and having a good time with each other and, just build friendships. And then also, one of the greatest things is during the message, Kevin actually this year, he gave a chance to receive Jesus. And a few kids in my group actually raised their hand to receive Christ. And I was just so stoked.
Praise God. That's awesome. And Vertical and Velocity do a lot of stuff together, but we also do a lot of things that are similar, yet at different times. And one of those things is being summer camp. Velocity goes to Lone Tree Summer Camp. And Vertical goes to Lone Tree Lakeshore Camp, excuse me. And so it's a wonderful time. We both do those things in the summertime. Johnny, you got to go this year as a leader as well. What can you say about Lone Tree camps and how they conduct themselves and their focus as a camp?
Just want to say that trip to Lone Tree was probably one of the best weekends of my life. The staff is so great. They put together like free, breakfast and lunch and dinner. We all get together and have fun. And Steve, he's like the main dude. He says a message every night, and we get together and like we worship. We do a lot of worship and under the stars even. And it's just such a great time. And the staff is so awesome. It makes like the whole thing. They keep everybody safe, and we always have a huge blast.
That's awesome. It's such a great time. And Ben, you went last year. You got to go. Tell us a little bit about just your experience at Lone Tree and just some of the things that were kind of a highlight to you.
Well, Lone Tree's it's a blast. They have a water slide, and we trough people every day. And there's always, at night, there's always a great time of worship, and they have big windows behind it with the stars, and it just kind of sets in, and you just go on a huge spiritual relationship with God, and you grow so much, and it's so much fun.
That's great. Ben, if I'm a mid-schooler, why would I want to give up a week of my summer to go to camp?
Well, you get to throw people in a pig trough. And,
Good answer.
So that's always a highlight.
That's good. on a more serious note, Velocity and Vertical do several other things in the year, and one of those things is the mission trip. Last year, it was a wonderful experience for both teams to go out and to go to different places and to spread the gospel. And we saw many professions of faith, much fruit. And no matter how young these students are, God uses them very, very powerfully. It's wonderful. Nick, you actually tell us a little bit about where you guys went and a couple of things that you did out there.
Got it. Well, Vertical this year went to Costa Rica, to Pura Vida, to help out Janer and Denise Alvarado. It was amazing. Best 2 weeks of my life. We had to visit high schools in and around the area, talk to the students that were there. And while we were there, we got to do an outreach at a roller rink. And we weren't really well received at the high school we went to. People were kind of wary of us kind of walking around their school, down their halls. But we showed up to set up, and there were more than 200 people lined up outside the roller rink already. And after we had done our skits that day for them, there were about, there must have been around about 40 or 50 professions of faith that day. So it was incredible. It was great.
That's amazing. And Johnny, you got to go as a leader with Velocity to Phoenix. Why don't you tell us a little bit about a couple things on that trip?
Yeah, we went and we visited the Anthem, and we helped them get started. They were having an event called The Stand, and basically it was like a start-off event. And we went out, and the coolest thing, we went down to downtown Tempe, and we just walked around, and we split off into groups, and we started preaching the gospel to people, inviting them, and we saw, some people came, and a lot of people gave their life to Jesus, and it was just such a fun time.
That's amazing. And if you heard me before, one of the most amazing things Vertical's doing lately is something called Streetlight. And as I said before, they've seen over 200 professions of faith on Friday nights, going out to malls and places like that. And, it's one of my favorite things to turn on my phone and get on Twitter. And they always usually tweet their success and all that God has done that night. So it's cool to just turn on your phone and see, pray for these 12 people that at Coronado Mall tonight who accepted Christ. And it's such a wonderful thing. Madison, you've been to Streetlight several times. Why don't you give them just a little idea about how it all goes down and all these people who are coming on a Friday night, high schoolers on a Friday night to go and take care of the Great Commission?
Basically, high schoolers give up their Friday night, and they meet here at the church, and they carpool off to a mall or anywhere really, and they just break off into groups and spread the gospel, and it's really cool to see the people, the professions of faith, and it's awesome.
That's so cool. And Nick, you've gone several times as well. And Nick, what would you say to the high schooler out there? I mean, or maybe even just the average adult out there who, with whether it's Transmit or it's Streetlight, all these opportunities that they have to go and share their faith. What do you say to somebody who's maybe not wanting to necessarily give up their Friday or Saturday night, and or maybe they just have never publicly shared their faith before and they're kind of scared about it?
Well, I would have to say that you won't regret giving up those few hours on a Friday night whatsoever. For me, it was just, I was able to articulate the gospel so much easier to other people. I've been able to see people I've had conversations with on Friday nights come to service the very next day and just get to see them get fed by the pastors here at Calvary. And, any fear or maybe reservations that you have about it, can all be overcome by Christ, and if you give it up to Him, it all kind of just melts away.
That's wonderful to see, just revival and young students just making a difference. Something besides evangelism that Vertical and Velocity are very serious about is discipleship. And so we have discipleship groups that meet here and other places around the city all school year long. And Ben, you actually took place in Brethren, which is our Velocity Boys discipleship groups. Ben, tell us what it's like to be with a group of the same guys for an entire school year, to see them on a regular basis, and to have the same leader every single Tuesday, and to go through a book together and really just be discipled.
Well, at first you don't know each other, so it's kind of awkward, but it gets better, and you're really comfortable talking to each other, and it's with the same group leader, you get to know them more, and you can go to them for things that you need, and it becomes very, kind of a little family kind of thing, and it's a lot of fun to come every week and go over the book, the chapter that you're doing, and it's great.
That's awesome. And Madison, you've not only, just like you were a leader and kind of student in Vertical, as far as discipleship groups, you've been in discipleship groups with Vertical, and you've also been a leader for the mid-school discipleship groups. And so how has being discipled in your life and the kind of the things that we have here at Student Ministries brought you to this next stage of your life where you're at now, which is actually nursing school?
It helps me prepare for the hospital and the medical field, because not everybody you encounter is going to be a Christian, and not everybody's going to have the same belief system as you. And so it really solidified my faith going through these books with my students, and getting to have a really good grasp on what I believe and what we believe at Calvary. And so it helped me, just solidify my faith, so that when I do go to the hospitals or to the health field, I won't be swayed by patients' views or coworkers' views, and it helps me treat people better.
That's wonderful. That's awesome. Would you give it a hand for all of our interviewees here?